Hey y'all, welcome to your workshop. Let's get started. It wouldn't be a Helen Olivia arrangement without our base of mini green hydrangea. You should have 4 stems of mini green in your bucket. Go ahead and pull those out, and you can prep your stems by removing any lower lying leaves and cutting your stem at an angle. We're going to place our stems around the rim of our vase in a square pattern. I'm leaving the heads of my hydrangea off of the rim a little bit, probably about an inch or two, to give my arrangement some width. We've got a lot of goodies to fit in here, so I want there to be plenty of room. Remember, throughout this process, you can always cut things again, but you cannot get any length back. So always start out with longer length, and then you can trim later if needed be. See, we have our square pattern here, crisscrossed in our vase. The next thing we're going to pull from our bucket is going to be our geranium foliage, which is this deliciously smelling foliage that we get from our local grower. It has a really cool kind of funky star-like shape to it, and it just is the best smelling thing, I think, in the world. So you want to go ahead and cut that up. We're going to put one piece in between each of our mini greens around the rim of our vase, and then you may be able to split your stems up into multiple pieces. If you have some that are lower down, you can break those apart. The important thing is to keep your leaves, the arms on the main stem. The arms of the leaf will not live if you were to pull them off the main stem, so keep them on that main stem to survive. So I ended up with enough pieces to put one in between each of my mini greens, following the rim of my vase, and then I'm also just going to place one in the center. Now, this is not a very structural greenery. It's really just very pretty and enhances the senses of our design. So I don't want it sticking out too far, and it does not last too long, so it's okay if it's a little lower. Next, you can go ahead and pull out the first rose that we're going to be working with this evening is your phoenix rose. You should have 6 stems of phoenix rose. They're going to be the softer peach in your bucket. And then roses, of course, have a 2-step process for preparing them to design with. You'll want to remove all of the leaves, and as well as be careful of any thorns on your stem. Roses do have thorns. And go ahead and clean up the outer petals of your rose. You may, they're called guard petals. You may have some bruised or torn petals. You'll want to remove those from the outside layer of your rose to give you a nice, pretty face. I like to go ahead and prep all of my stems at once so that I can just roll with it. The first 4 roses that I'm going to use, I'm going to place, again, following that pattern of in between each of my mini greens. We're still working on the base of our arrangement here, so I'm going to place those lying off the rim of the vase, one in between each of my mini greens, so that will be the first 4 roses that we use. For the last two of this soft pink phoenix rose, soft peach, I'm going to go ahead and place them in the center, a little lower. Again, this is just the base, so they don't need to be up high too much. This is more of a wider and flatter design than it is roundy-moundy. All right, so the next flower we're going to pull from our bucket is going to be our second rose, which is going to be the darker peach, a little bit more of a salmon coral color rose, and that is our Lolita roses. You should have 3 of those. And since we're working with 3s here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place one by itself on one side of my arrangement and then turn my arrangement to the other side, and I'll place the next 2 Lolita roses together. I'm going to pair them together, and when I pair my roses together, I always like to do a little bit of stair-stepping action so that they're not necessarily on the same level and there's a little bit more dimension between them. Now, when you are measuring on where to cut your stems, keep in mind that this vase is about a 5 to 6 inch vase. So you want to at least have 5 to 6 inches on your stem so that it does not get too lost or does not make it into the water. The next item we'll pull from our bucket is the last rose that we are using. We have 3 different roses in this arrangement, but this one is a garden rose. So you're going to pull out 3 of these lovely bright pink expression garden roses, and we're going to clean up those stems. They have a little bit nastier thorns on them, so be careful with that. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with my Lolita. I'm going to put one by itself on one side of my arrangement and then turn my arrangement to the other side and place the other 2 together. I kind of want to make sure that I do it in opposite of where I grouped my Lolitas together. So wherever I have 2 Lolitas, I will put 1 pink expression, and wherever I have 1 Lolita, I will put 2 pink expressions. Hope that makes sense. Again, when I pair those 2 pink expressions together, I chose the 2 smaller heads to pair together, and I left the bigger guy by himself naturally. I'm going to still create a bit of a stair-stepping action, so one of the heads of my grouped pink expressions is going to sit lower in my arrangement than the other, trying to play a lot with dimension here. Next, from your bucket, you'll want to pull out your 3 stems of celosia. This is a really awesome local variety of celosia called, it's a terracotta celosia. I love this color. It's such a great blender. And celosia is just an awesome seasonal flower for the late summer, going into the fall season. So I'm just going to break up my piece and place him around just to provide a nice little texture and filler to break up my rose heads. If you have any long offshoots or arms on your stem, you can use those on their own. So I'm going to pull off those little guys, and I'll probably kind of tuck them low around the rim of my vase to help more with coverage. All right, moving on, we're going to pull out our dahlias. The dahlias are definitely the highlight and the showstopper of all these summer splendors, but they have such thick stems on them. We want to make sure that we get them in earlier in our arrangement so that we don't break them or aren't able to fit them in later on. So I'm going to go ahead and place these in, and since we do have only 2 dahlias and they're both round heads, you can group them together and do a little bit of a stair-stepping action, but I am going to go ahead and specifically place mine on opposite sides of my arrangement, and I want to make sure that I face them in different directions too. So I don't want the faces of my dahlias to be showing on the same side. I want one to be facing backwards and one to be facing forwards in a way. All right, next from our bucket, we're going to pull out is our lisianthus. You should have 2 stems of this champagne lisianthus. Lisianthus is so awesome because you get so many blooms on one stem. So you can go ahead and break up your stems as much as possible, making sure you at least have 5 to 6 inches from the bloom. And then this guy is just so beautiful, and it's a soft peachy color. It just works great to blend. I'm going to go ahead and just evenly disperse him throughout my arrangement to kind of blend that soft tone in and fill in any other gaps that we have. If you have the little green buds on your stems, you can totally keep those on. If you like them, they're super cute, but it's also okay to pop them off if they're too long or if they're just not your thing. See, it looks like I got about 6 different pieces from those 2 stems, which is really awesome. Lizzie is fairly expensive per stem and by bunch alone, but it gives you a really good bang for your buck. And again, a lot of what we are using, most of what we're using, other than the roses, are locally grown flowers, which is just the best part about summertime. All right, next we are going to pull out our zinnias. We are working with 2 varieties of zinnias for this workshop. The first, you'll notice, are going to be kind of like a dusty, peachy, kind of have some greenish yellow with like a darker center to them. Those are called a queen lime variety. And then the next is going to be a more vibrant peach. It's called an Oklahoma peach, or the Oklahoma variety of zinnias. It has a smaller head and a much more vibrant, solid color to it. You should have about 3 stems of each of these zinnias. Now the first ones that I'm working with, the peach queen limes, I'm just kind of gonna disperse them evenly, kind of create a narrow triangle around the top of my arrangement. They're larger heads, so just naturally I'm gonna sit them a little lower, not lower than my roses, but just following gravity, whereas the Oklahomas, as I start to use those, I want those to stick out just a little bit more. They're a little more delicate, smaller heads, so they're going to float up a little bit more, but still I am trying to keep them within a triangle positioning closer to the top of my arrangement. As we fill out our arrangement, it's going to get a little tougher to get your stems in. So if you're getting any kind of resistance, you can try twisting your stem back and forth, or you might just have to try a different angle or spot. We're filling out very nicely here. This is a riot of color, so juicy, very summer sorbet. All right, next you should have a few pieces of what is called a cherry caramel phlox. This is also locally grown. It is specifically a local flower. You cannot get this variety from wholesalers, and I adore this coloring. It kind of has a peachy to pink variegation to it. And so phlox is a fill, so I am just going to tuck this low kind of around my rim anywhere where I need that coverage or where I want to kind of blend that soft peachy color. Since phlox is a very delicate filler flower, I don't like to have it sticking out too far. It needs to be supported by other elements or else it will droop faster. All right, moving on, we have got 3 stems of lavender or blue scabiosa. We are working with a couple different varieties. So yours might be fluffy. I've got the scoop variety, which is a little flatter and less petally, but just a really gorgeous, whimsical shape. And these are just natural floaters. So I'm going to make sure to leave some room for them to float above everything else. But this lavender color is kind of playing with the blue undertones in our pink dahlias. So I'm kind of going to pair them next to that blue undertone to kind of pull that out and blend. All right, our final flower for the evening is going to be our cosmos. I love these cosmos. They're so pretty. They're a double pink cosmo. You should have 3 stems or 2 stems of these, depending on how many blooms are on your stem. But again, natural floaters, naturally whimsical. So I want to make sure that I utilize the flowers' natural instincts to kind of float above everything and play with that a little bit. Again, it has a little bit more of a blue undertone to that pink, so I do want to pair him with my blue and purple undertones to blend those together. All right, finally, we are moving on to our last few elements. These are going to be our finishing touch elements for this summer sorbet arrangement. Still using local goodies, splendors of the summer. This is explosion grass. So you should have about 3 pieces of explosion grass, I believe. This guy is so awesome. It's going to have these long grass pieces. You can pull those off, you can leave them on depending on how much you like them, but if you pull them off, just be very delicate that you don't break the stem. And I'm just going to place my explosion grass just around, kind of lower in my arrangement, especially if you have a very large head or very fluffy head. You can tuck it low so it doesn't stick out too much, but it's definitely up to you and your preference. I like to put these lower, closer to the rim to kind of blur the bottom of my arrangement. All right, last but not least is our mint, the ultimate finishing touch on any arrangement during this season. Smells so delicious, and that bright green just really complements all of these bright colors very well. So I'm just going to evenly disperse my mint throughout. Anywhere where I have a lot of large round heads that I want to break up, I'm going to add a piece. I'm going to leave them sticking out a little bit, not too much. It is one of those greeneries that does need to be supported, but I don't want him to be hidden. I want to see that bright green. So I'm just evenly dispersing and kind of breaking up some heavy groupings a little bit. As you put in your last stems, take some time to make any adjustments, play around, edit anything that you would like. But congratulations, designers. You've made an arrangement.
Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty.